A man bought an entire California ghost town for $1.4 million, moved in alone during a pandemic, and the first thing that happened was his 150-year-old hotel burned to the ground. He stayed anyway. California's ghost towns are waking up, not because the gold came back or the railroad started running again, but because the rest of California got so expensive that abandoned mining towns in the middle of the desert started looking reasonable. And the people moving in are not who you'd expect. A Las Vegas circus producer spending $20 million to turn a desert town into Circus Town, an artist colony at the lowest point in America where land once sold for $800. A mystery LLC that dropped $22.58 million on a town near Joshua Tree and ghosted every reporter who asked what they're doing with it. And a 120-year-old ghost town where someone opened a surf shop in the desert, 60 miles from the ocean. Hit subscribe or a circus company will buy your cul-de-sac and put acrobats in your driveway. You've been warned. Number 12. Bodie. If you've ever Googled California ghost town, you've seen Bodie. It's the gold standard ghost town, literally, because gold is exactly what built it. A prospector named Waterman Bodie found gold north of Mono Lake in the 1850s, and by 1879 the town had swollen to nearly 10,000 residents, with a reputation so violent that legend says a little girl, upon learning her family was moving there, wrote in her diary, "Goodbye, God, I'm going to Bodie." At its peak, miners pulled more than $38 million in gold and silver out of these hills. Saloons outnumbered churches by a ratio that would make Las Vegas blush. Then the gold ran out. Fires swept through and Bodie emptied like a bathtub with the drain pulled. But Bodie never truly died. California turned it into a state historic park in 1962 and preserved it in something called arrested decay, which is a fancy way of saying they stopped it from falling apart but didn't fix anything either. About 170 buildings still stand with their interiors frozen in time. Dishes on tables, products on shelves, dust on everything. And people love it. Over 200,000 visitors made the drive out to this remote high desert plateau in 2022 alone. At 8,375 feet of elevation, winter access requires skis or a snowmobile, and yet tourists keep coming. The Bodie Foundation runs stamp mill tours, and the gift shop does brisk business selling souvenirs from a town that technically doesn't exist anymore. Entry runs about $8 for adults and $5 for kids, which makes it one of the cheapest day trips in California. Rangers give guided tours through the old stamp mill and tell stories about the gunfights, the opium dens, and the time a man was murdered over a card game, and nobody bothered to investigate because, well, it was Bodie. The best part is the curse of Bodie. Take an artifact from the ghost town, and supposedly terrible luck follows you home. The park office receives a steady stream of mailed back stolen items, rocks, rusty nails, old bottles, accompanied by handwritten apology letters from people who swear their lives fell apart after pocketing a souvenir. One letter reportedly apologized for 3 flat tires, a broken engagement, and a kitchen fire, all in the 2 weeks after taking a single rusty nail. Whether the curse is real is debatable. The guilt is not. Number 11. Calico. About 2 hours northeast of Los Angeles, sitting in the Calico Mountains of San Bernardino County, is a ghost town that found its second life as something between a museum and a theme park. Calico was founded in 1881 during California's biggest silver strike, and for about a decade it was roaring. Nearly 1,200 residents, 22 saloons, its own Chinatown, its own newspaper. The mines produced roughly $86 million in silver and another $45 million in borax. Then silver prices collapsed in the mid-1890s, and by 1907, Calico was basically a collection of empty buildings arguing with the wind. Enter Walter Knott. Yes, that Walter Knott, the Knott's Berry Farm guy. His uncle had made money in the Calico mines back in the day, and Knott had a sentimental streak a mile wide. He bought the town in the 1950s, restored it with his own money, and then in 1966 donated the whole thing to San Bernardino County. Just gave it away. Today, Calico operates as a county regional park with 14 shops, 3 restaurants, a narrow-gauge railroad called the Calico and Odessa, gold panning stations, mine tours, gunfight reenactments, and over 300 campsites. About a third of the buildings are original. You can walk through Maggie's mine, take the railroad loop around the hillside, and buy rock candy at the general store while actors in period costumes pretend to shoot each other in the street. The county assessor recorder even hosts annual Halloween wedding events there, because nothing says eternal love like exchanging vows in a town that was abandoned within a single generation. Calico is California Historical Landmark number 782, and it pulls in families from all over Southern California on weekends. It's proof that if you can't revive a ghost town with residents, you can always revive it with gift shops and funnel cake. Number 10. Randsburg. Tucked into the western edge of the Mojave Desert in Kern County, Randsburg calls itself California's living ghost town, which is both a marketing slogan and a surprisingly accurate description. Gold was discovered on Rand Mountain in 1895, and within 4 years the population hit around 3,500 people. The Yellow Aster mine alone was pulling roughly $120,000 a month in gold at its peak. The town produced over $60 million in gold before fires and depleted veins shut everything down after 1918. Randsburg never completely emptied out, though. Somewhere between 69 and 102 people still live here, depending on which census you trust and who's currently mad enough at civilization to stick around. On weekends, the population triples with off-roaders, dirt bikers, and tourists hunting for a version of California that doesn't involve avocado toast or a $3,500 studio apartment. The 1904 General Store soda fountain still serves its signature Black Bart sundae. There's a bar called The Joint in a 1905 building that functions as the town's social heart, and on busy weekends people have reportedly ridden horses through the front door. The Rand Desert Museum preserves the mining history, and yes, someone actually opened a surf shop here. In the high desert, 60 miles from the nearest wave. The owners go by Carole King and Brad Pitt, which are not their real names, and honestly, that tells you everything you need to know about the kind of people who choose to live in a ghost town. If you're enjoying this countdown and you haven't hit that like button yet, now would be a really good time. We're just getting started, and the towns ahead are about to get significantly weirder. Number 9. Keeler. This is the ghost town that Los Angeles killed, and that's not an exaggeration. Keeler sits on the eastern shore of what used to be Owens Lake in Inyo County. In its heyday, it was the terminus of the Carson and Colorado Railroad, the shipping point for silver coming down from Cerro Gordo, moved across the lake by steamships with names like the Bessie Brady. A zinc mining boom in the early 1900s pushed the population past 7,000 people. Keeler had hotels, saloons, and the valley's first swimming pool, a public pool called The Plunge that was apparently quite the destination. Then Los Angeles got thirsty. Starting in 1913, the city diverted the Owens River south through an aqueduct engineered by William Mulholland, the same water grab that inspired the movie Chinatown. By 1926, Owens Lake was completely dry. The water, the steamships, the fishing, the recreation, all gone. What replaced it was a lake bed of toxic alkali dust that created some of the worst air pollution in the United States, with dust storms so bad you couldn't see across the street. The Environmental Protection Agency identified it as the single largest source of particulate matter pollution in the entire country. Los Angeles got its swimming pools and its green lawns, and Keeler got lung disease and an empty lake bed that looked like the surface of Mars. Today, Keeler has somewhere between 50 and 70 residents. The old beach resort sits more than a mile from any water, stranded on salt flats that can hit 150 degrees in summer. But there's a strange silver lining. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power has been flooding about 48 square miles of the dry lake bed with shallow water, cutting dust emissions by over 99%, and accidentally creating one of the most important migratory bird habitats in the western United States. Keeler still hasn't recovered, but the ecosystem around it is slowly coming back, And the tourism halo from nearby Cerro Gordo's restoration is starting to bring visitors through. Number 8, Darwin. If Keeler is the town Los Angeles killed, Darwin is the town that decided it liked being dead and turned it into an art form. Named after explorer Dr. Darwin French, this silver and lead mining camp was founded in 1874 and briefly grew to over 3,500 people, making it the biggest town in Inyo County. Then a smallpox epidemic hit in 1878, fires swept through in 1879, and a highway bypass in 1937 made sure almost nobody had a reason to drive through again. The 2020 census counted 36 residents, down from 43 in 2010. And the people who remain are, to put it gently, not the types who miss civilization. Darwin has no cell phone service, no store, no gas station, and absolutely no interest in getting any of those things. The town's appeal is total disconnection from everything the rest of California represents. Sculptor Jim Hunault built a Stonehenge-like sculpture garden out of desert stone and scrap metal, the kind of thing that looks like either a masterpiece or a hallucination depending on the time of day. Writer Kathy Goss relocated from San Francisco, which is about as dramatic a lifestyle change as you can make without leaving the planet. She wrote a book called Darwin Diaries, built a geodesic dome performance space out of reclaimed materials, and set up a shipping container recording studio where musicians come to lay down tracks in absolute silence, because there is literally nothing out here to make noise except wind and the occasional coyote. Yard art made from animal bones and old appliances dots the landscape between the remaining structures. It's less a town and more a loose collective of creative hermits who happen to share the same zip code and an unspoken agreement to leave each other alone. Darwin won't be on Zillow anytime soon. There's no realtor brave enough to try. And that's exactly the point. Number 7, Bridgeville. This is the town that became famous for one of the most absurd real estate transactions in internet history. Bridgeville is an 83-acre hamlet in Humboldt County, up on the Redwood Coast, named in 1875 for a bridge over the Van Dusen River. It served as a stagecoach hub and reportedly a Pony Express stop. Logging's decline left it with about 25 to 30 residents, 8 houses, a cafe, and a post office. In 2002, Bridgeville became the first town ever auctioned on eBay. The bidding reportedly hit around $1.77 million before the winning bidder backed out. The town eventually sold to a banker named Bruce Kroll for about $700,000. Then in August 2006, Los Angeles entertainment manager Daniel Lapie bought it for $1.25 million. After Lapie's death, it was relisted at around $1.3 million. The revival story here is more cautionary than inspiring. Buying a whole town, it turns out, is the easy part. The hard part is doing something with it when it includes crumbling buildings, no reliable water or sewer infrastructure, road maintenance you're suddenly responsible for, and residents who didn't know their town was being sold to strangers on the internet until they read about it online. Imagine finding out your neighborhood changed hands because someone clicked "Buy it now" on a website. Bridgeville proves that you can buy a town for less than a house in the Bay Area, but making it livable again requires the kind of patience, capital, and tolerance for septic tank emergencies that most people underestimate by a factor of 10. Number 6, Bombay Beach. On the western shore of the Salton Sea, 223 feet below sea level, sits the lowest community in the entire United States and possibly the strangest real estate market in California. Bombay Beach was a glamorous 1950s resort destination. Frank Sinatra partied here. The Beach Boys visited. Bing Crosby fished here. Then the Salton Sea, which was never a natural lake to begin with, started getting saltier and more toxic through the 1970s and 80s. Fish died by the millions. The smell became legendary. Homes flooded. The resort economy collapsed, and Bombay Beach became a poster child for California's environmental failures. Then something unexpected happened. Artists showed up. Starting around 2015, a free festival called the Bombay Beach Biennale, co-founded by filmmaker Tao Ruspoli, gallery owner Stefan Ashkenazi, and Lily Johnson White, began installing permanent artwork throughout the abandoned streets. a hermitage museum, an opera house, a drive-in theater made of art cars. The festival runs year-round now, hosting a literary festival and a philosophy conference that's attracted scholars from Oxford and Harvard. Artist Kenny Scharf has work displayed among the ruins, and the real estate numbers tell the craziest story of all. Beachfront lots that could once be bought out of tax foreclosure for as little as $800 are now listing for $20,000 and climbing. The median sold price for a home hit roughly $89,900 in 2025. Active lots still go for as little as $27,000, and habitable homes range from about $85,000 to $179,000. For California, that's practically free. The town's become a magnet for artists, remote workers, and anyone priced out of every other part of the state who decided that a view of a dying sea at 223 feet below sea level beats a view of a parking garage at $2,500 a month. Some people have bought lots and parked Airstreams on them. Others have renovated old trailers into surprisingly livable desert studios. A few have built entirely new structures that look like something between a Frank Lloyd Wright sketch and a fever dream. The Ski Inn, a local bar, has its walls papered in dollar bills left by visitors. You can sit there, drink a cold beer, look out at the Salton Sea catching the sunset, and genuinely wonder whether you've stumbled into the weirdest or the best place in California. Possibly both. Number 5. Amboy. In the middle of the Mojave Desert on Old Route 66, there's a town that was saved by a man who made his fortune selling fried chicken. Amboy boomed after Route 66 opened in 1926, and Roy's Motel and Cafe became its beating heart when it opened in 1938. For decades, travelers stopped for gas, pie, and a night's sleep in one of Roy's cottages. The iconic 50-foot Googie neon sign became one of the most photographed landmarks on the Mother Road. Then Interstate 40 bypassed the town around 1972, and Amboy nearly died overnight. Traffic vanished. Roy's closed. The motel cottages sat empty. The gas pumps rusted. The neon sign went dark. For 30 years, the buildings baked under the desert sun alongside two extinct volcanoes that frame the landscape, Amboy Crater and Pisgah Crater, as if the Earth itself was reminding everyone that things end around here. On May 3, 2005, Juan Polo chicken chain founder Albert Okura bought the entire town, roughly 950 acres, for $425,000 in cash. He promised the seller, an elderly woman named Bessie Burris, that he would restore Roy's. Okura reopened the gas station and gift shop in 2008 and spent years relighting the iconic neon sign, which finally blazed again in 2019. Okura passed away in January 2023, but his son Kyle picked up the mission. The plan is to reopen Roy's Cafe and the 6 original motel cottages by 2026, perfectly timed for Route 66's centennial celebration. Kyle also envisions Amboy as a filming location, and Olivia Rodrigo has already shot documentary footage there. There's even talk of turning the desert flats into a music festival venue, a kind of mini Coachella for the Route 66 crowd. A fried chicken magnate, a $425,000 check, and a 100-year-old road that refuses to die. If that's not a California story, nothing is. If you've been watching this long and you're still not subscribed, I genuinely don't know what you're waiting for. We cover the wildest real estate stories and hidden spots across America every single week. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Number 4. Trona. This one isn't a passion project or an art colony. Trona's comeback is industrial, and it might be the most important one on the list. Trona is a company town built around Cerro Lake, a dry lake bed in San Bernardino County where miners first discovered borax in 1873 and soda ash production began in 1905. For over 150 years, Cerro Valley Minerals, now owned by India's Nirma, has extracted borax, boric acid, soda ash, and salt from the lake bed, shipping about 1.75 million tons of chemicals per year on its own private railroad. The plant employs more than 600 people and generates over $300 million in annual revenue. The town itself has fallen to about 1,700 residents, and driving through feels like visiting a place that's been slowly exhaling for 50 years. But two things are about to change the math. In June 2025, solar thermal company GlassPoint announced a partnership with Searles Valley Minerals to install 750 megawatt thermal of solar technology at the Trona facility, with the goal of cutting carbon emissions by up to 500,000 metric tons of CO2 per year. That's not a small pilot program. That's one of the largest industrial solar partnerships in the country. The second thing is lithium. Searles Lake sits on untapped lithium reserves, and lithium is the mineral that makes electric vehicle batteries work. The boron and soda ash Trona already produces feeds, solar panel glass, and wind turbine blades. So this old mining town, almost accidentally, ended up sitting at the center of the clean energy supply chain. The town smells like chemicals, and that's on a good day. The evaporation ponds give the whole valley an alien landscape of white-crusted flats and milky blue pools that look like they belong on another planet. Hollywood agrees. The nearby Trona Pinnacles, a field of over 500 tufa spires jutting out of the desert floor, are one of the most filmed science fiction locations on Earth. Star Trek, Planet of the Apes, and countless car commercials have all shot there. But Trona might outlast every other town on this list, because unlike gold or silver, the minerals it produces never went out of style. They just got rebranded as clean energy feedstock, and suddenly the dusty chemical plant in the middle of nowhere became essential infrastructure. Number 3. Nipton. This might be the single most ridiculous ownership saga of any town in America, and that's including the one that sold on eBay. Nipton is an 80-acre town right on the California-Nevada border in San Bernardino County. Founded during a gold rush in the early 1900s, it never had more than about 20 residents, but it had a hotel built in 1904, a trading post, a schoolhouse, and a surprisingly clever business model. For years, Nipton survived partly by selling California lottery tickets to Nevada residents who couldn't buy them across the state line. Genius. Gerald Freeman revived the town in 1985 and even installed a small solar farm, making Nipton one of the earliest solar-powered communities in the country. After Freeman passed away, his widow put the town up for sale at $5 million. In 2017, a cannabis company called American Green announced it was buying Nipton to build an energy-independent, cannabis-friendly hospitality destination, complete with CBD-infused bottled water. The internet immediately dubbed it Weedtopia. That plan fell apart. The town passed to an oil and gas company called Delta International, reportedly for around $7.7 million. That didn't go anywhere either. Then in early 2022, Las Vegas entertainment company Spiegelworld, the people behind the hit show Absinthe, bought Nipton for $2.5 million. The company's founder, Ross Mollison, titled the announcement video, WTF, We Bought a Town. Spiegelworld is investing at least $20 million to turn Nipton into Circus Town, an artist residency and the company's global headquarters. As of 2025, they've fixed the water system, hauled out 250 tons of debris, bought a fire truck, and begun opening the first public venues. Gerald Freeman's widow, by the way, reportedly laughed when she heard about the cannabis company's plans. She'd spent years building a quiet, solar-powered community, and suddenly the internet was calling her town Weedtopia. From gold rush outpost to lottery scheme to weed paradise to oil investment to literal circus headquarters, Nipton has been through more identity crises than a college freshman, with a double major and a minor in regret. But Spiegelworld seems like the first buyer with both the money and the weirdness to actually make something stick out here. If a company that runs a circus show inside a tent on the Las Vegas Strip can't figure out how to make an 80-acre desert town entertaining, nobody can. Number 2. Eagle Mountain. Someone paid $22.58 million for a ghost town in the California desert, and they won't tell anyone what they're doing with it. Eagle Mountain was a company town built for Kaiser Steel's iron mine in Riverside County. At its peak, thousands of workers and their families lived in neat rows of stucco houses with manicured lawns in the middle of the desert. They had a swimming pool, a bowling alley, a company store, and all the suburban comforts of the 1950s, just surrounded by scorpions and Joshua trees instead of strip malls. The mine closed in 1983 and the company pulled out, leaving behind hundreds of empty homes, a 350-seat recreation hall, and the particular kind of silence that only exists in places designed for thousands of people and occupied by zero. The town sits nearly surrounded by Joshua Tree National Park and has been used as a filming location for Tenet and Stand By Me, which makes sense because walking through Eagle Mountain feels exactly like walking through a movie set where the actors forgot to show up. The site has been kicked around for decades. Los Angeles County bought it for $41 million in 2000 to build a landfill, but environmental lawsuits killed the project. A company called Eagle Crest Energy proposed a pumped storage hydroelectric plant, where water gets pumped uphill into old mine pits during cheap energy hours and released downhill to generate electricity during peak demand. It's been rejected 9 times by the California legislature. In 2023, a state law explicitly excluded it from energy procurement. The most recent Fierce extension gives them until June 2028 to start construction and June 2031 to finish. Then, in April 2023, a Cerritos-based LLC called Ecology Mountain Holdings bought the roughly 10,000-acre property for $22.58 million. The buyer announced no development plans. The Greater Palm Springs Film Office said it would continue operating as normal for movie shoots. Reporters tried to get answers. Nothing came back. $22.58 million. 10,000 acres. Complete silence. That's either the most boring real estate investment in California history or the most interesting one. Time will tell. Number 1. Cerro Gordo. This is the one that started as a real estate listing and became a New York Times bestseller. In 1865, a Mexican prospector named Pablo Flores discovered silver ore on a mountain in Inyo County. The town that sprang up around the mine was called Cerro Gordo, which translates to Fat Hill, and for about 15 years it was the largest producer of silver and lead in all of California. The mine is believed to have generated roughly $500 million worth of silver in inflation-adjusted terms. At its peak, around 4,700 people lived on this mountain, and the silver flowing down to Los Angeles through the port at Owens Lake literally financed the city's early growth. Cerro Gordo was the silver thread that helped build LA. By the 1880s, silver prices crashed and the town emptied out. A zinc revival brought a few people back in the early 1900s, but by 2019, a single elderly miner was the last resident. The 300-acre property, with its 22 surviving buildings, was listed for sale at $925,000. That's when Brent Underwood showed up. Underwood was running a hostel in Austin, Texas, when he and business partner John Beer, along with a group of Los Angeles investors, placed a bid. About a dozen competing offers came in. Per the listing agent, the sale closed on Friday the 13th of July 2018 for $1.4 million. Underwood moved to the mountaintop full-time in March 2020, right as the pandemic shut the world down. He got snowed in, alone, in a ghost town on top of a mountain, with no cell service and a crumbling 150-year-old hotel as his main shelter. Then on June 20th, 2020, the American Hotel, which had been built in 1871 and survived everything the California wilderness could throw at it for 149 years, burned to the ground. He stayed. Underwood started documenting the restoration on YouTube under the channel name Ghost Town Living, and the combination of isolation, absurdity, and genuine frontier grit turned the series into a phenomenon. He partnered with the Diesel brothers for heavy equipment, worked with Polaris Off-Road for logistics, and rebuilt the American Hotel with fire-resistant materials, completing the exterior by 2025. In 2024, Penguin Random House released his book about the experience, and it hit the New York Times bestseller list. He recorded the audiobook version 900 feet underground, inside the Union Mine. Tours now run at about $10 per adult, with proceeds going to the Cerro Gordo Historical Foundation, and the long-term plan is to turn the property into a bed-and-cook-your-own-breakfast destination. A literal bloodstain on one of the original building floors still testifies to the town's violent mining era past. A guy paid $1.4 million for a mountain covered in 150-year-old buildings. His hotel burned down. A pandemic trapped him there. He rebuilt everything with his bare hands and a YouTube channel. And now he's got a best-selling book and a tourist destination. If Cerro Gordo isn't proof that California ghost towns are having a moment, nothing is. And that wraps up 12 California ghost towns that refuse to stay dead. If this video made you want to sell your apartment and move to a desert mining town, you're not alone. And if it just made you curious about more hidden corners of America, subscribe and click the video on screen right now. We've got plenty more where this came from.